You think you know predators? You think you understand what makes a species dangerous? Let me tell you something, friend. I've spent 17 cycles as a security analyst aboard the Galactic Commerce Station Epsilon 9, and I thought I'd seen it all. Massive Krolix warriors with mandibles that could snap titanium. Venomous Silthari assassins who could kill you with a touch. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day a tiny human walked into our facility and turned every single one of my assumptions into cosmic dust. This is the story of how I learned that size means nothing, appearance means less, and sometimes the deadliest thing in the galaxy comes in a package so small you could literally step on it. So buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you will change the way you look at every species database warning for the rest of your life. My name is Voran, and I'm what you'd call a Bantharian. We're big, 7 feet tall on a bad day with natural armor plating and enough muscle mass to bend steel bars for fun. We're the guys you call when you need security, when you need intimidation, when you need someone who can stare down a charging Grillock and make it think twice. I'd been working station security for most of my adult life, and I was good at it. Really good. The day started like any other. Morning shift rotation, standard security briefings, the usual complaints about docking fees and cargo inspections. My partner, Jexis, a 4-armed Quellan with an attitude problem and a taste for fermented fungus drinks, was going on and on about some trade dispute in Sector 7. I'm telling you, Voran, she chittered, her mandibles clicking in that annoying way they did when she got excited. These Mordanian traders, they think they can just waltz in here with undeclared biomaterials and expect us to look the other way. Can you believe the audacity? I grunted, barely listening, my eyes scanning the arrival manifests on my datapad. Ship after ship, species after species, nothing unusual. Typical Monday, if you will. And that's when I saw it. One passenger, classified as human, origin planet Earth. Hazard classification pending review. Hey Jexis, I said, pointing at the screen, what's a human? She leaned over, squinting at my datapad with 2 of her 4 eyes. Human, never heard of them. Must be some new species applying for trade membership. Why? Got one, arriving in 20 minutes. Gate 14. Jexis shrugged, which looked weird with 4 arms. So, run the database check. That's what it's there for. Right, the database. The Galactic Species Registry, our one-stop shop for every single known intelligent species in charted space. It had everything. Biology, psychology, threat assessment, dietary requirements, cultural taboos. If a species existed and had achieved space travel, it was in there. I pulled up the search function and typed in HUMAN. The screen flickered, took longer than usual. Weird. Then the file opened, and I felt my primary heart skip a beat. Species, human. Homeworld, Earth Class 9 Death World. Threat assessment. Extreme caution advised. Hazard level, 9. I blinked. Read it again. 9? Jexis, I said slowly. You need to see this. She wandered over, took one look at the screen, and all 4 of her arms went rigid. That's got to be a mistake. Hazard level 9. The only species with a 9 rating are the Corthax Ravagers, and they're literally engineered war beasts. It gets better, I muttered, scrolling down. Listen to this. Biological quirks, persistence hunting capabilities, extreme temperature tolerance, rapid healing factor, pain suppression mechanisms, adrenaline-induced strength amplification, and get this. Voluntary control of fear response during crisis situations. Jexis let out a low whistle. Okay, so they're tough, but 9, come on. I kept reading. Psychological profile, highly adaptable, prone to bonding with other species, creative problem solvers, and here's the kicker, quote, humans have been observed to continue functioning through injuries that would incapacitate or kill most sapient species. Approach with respect, end quote. Still sounds like bureaucratic exaggeration, Jexis said. But her voice had lost some of its confidence. There's a note here, I continued, from the Exploration Committee. It says initial contact teams reported humans as friendly and cooperative. However, stress response testing revealed psychological and physical capabilities far beyond expected parameters for their size and apparent fragility. Recommend cultural integration before full trade status approval. Jexis clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. So what are you saying? This human showing up is dangerous? I'm saying the database is telling us to be careful. Real careful. Well, what do they look like? Are we talking armored behemoths? Toxic skin? Multiple limbs? I pulled up the species image file, waited for it to load. When it did, both of us just stared. The creature in the image was tiny, maybe 5.5 feet tall, smooth skin, 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. It had brown fur on its head, cut short, and these weird forward-facing eyes that looked almost comically large on its small face. No claws, no fangs, no armor plating, no venomous spines. It looked like something you'd keep as a pet. That's a hazard level 9, Jexis said flatly. According to the database, yes. Vorin, that thing looks like it would lose a fight with a particularly aggressive cushion. I had to admit, she had a point. The human in the image looked soft, vulnerable, almost delicate. Its little face had this weird expression, like it was smiling, or something. Not exactly the face of an apex predator. Maybe it's a clerical error, I suggested. Or maybe, Jexis said with a grin, the database got hacked by someone with a sense of humor. Come on, Vern, look at it. You could probably snap that thing in half with one hand. I looked at the image again, then at the hazard rating, then back at the image. Something didn't add up. But orders were orders, and the database was the database. If it said hazard level 9, we treated it like hazard level 9, no matter how ridiculous it seemed. Let's just meet this human, I said. Do the standard greeting, check their paperwork, and if they seem harmless, we file a database correction request. Sounds like a plan, Jexis agreed. But I'm telling you right now, if that little thing is dangerous, I'll eat my own shed exoskeleton. 20 minutes later, we were standing at gate 14, waiting for the transport shuttle to dock. The airlock hissed, pressurized, and the door slid open with a mechanical whine. Passengers started filing out, a family of Quellan merchants, 2 Bantherian engineers, a Silthari diplomat, with the usual entourage of nervous assistants. And then, at the very end, the human appeared. She was even smaller in person, maybe 5'4", tops. Wearing what looked like a simple grey travel suit, carrying a single bag over one shoulder. Her skin was this weird peachy tan color, completely unarmored, and her hair was dark and pulled back into some kind of tail thing. She had these bright green eyes that darted around the gate area with obvious curiosity. She looked harmless. Completely, utterly, harmless. Jexis elbowed me with one of her 4 arms. That's your hazard level 9? Voran, I've seen more threatening houseplants. The humans spotted us, probably because we were the only ones in security uniforms, and walked over with this bouncy little gait that made her look even less intimidating. Hi there, she said, her voice high and cheerful. I'm Mira Kowalski, here for the cultural exchange program. You must be station security. Her accent was weird, musical almost, with these strange rolling sounds that didn't exist in standard galactic common. Yes, I managed. I'm Voran. This is Jexis. We're here to process your arrival and, make sure everything is in order. Great, Mira said, flashing this big smile that showed her flat little teeth. Flat teeth. No fangs. No tearing implements. What kind of predator had flat teeth? Jexis leaned down to get a better look at her. So, Mira, is it? Question. Your species is listed as hazard level 9 in our database. Well, that's pretty high. Mind explaining that? Mira's eyebrows went up. Humans had these weird patches of fur above their eyes that apparently moved to express emotion. Fascinating and ridiculous in equal measure. Hazard level 9? She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh wow, someone really did their homework. Yeah, humans are kind of weird biologically. We're from a pretty hostile planet, so we evolved to be stupidly resilient. But don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble, just here to learn about your cultures, and maybe teach you guys about Earth. Stupidly resilient, Jexis repeated. Right, you'll have to forgive us, but you don't exactly look like a Class 9 Death World survivor. Mira shrugged, and the motion was so casual, so unbothered. Yeah, we get that a lot apparently. Look, I know I'm small by galactic standards, but humans are pretty good at surviving stuff. Our planet is kind of a nightmare factory. Extreme weather, tons of predators, diseases, natural disasters, you name it. We just kind of learn to deal with it. I pulled out my datapad, pulling up her file. It says here you have persistence hunting capabilities. What does that mean? Oh, that. Mira's eyes lit up. Yeah, so basically humans can run for really, really long times without stopping. Our ancestors used to hunt by literally chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're not fast, but we don't stop. Ever. Jexis looked at me. I looked at Jexis. You hunt by jogging at things until they die? Jexis said slowly. Pretty much, yeah. Terrifying, right? Mira grinned. This was insane. This tiny, soft little creature was describing horror movie hunting tactics with the enthusiasm of someone discussing their favorite hobby. And the pain suppression thing? I asked. Oh, that's just adrenaline. When we're in danger, our bodies dump a bunch of chemicals that basically make us ignore pain and get stronger for a while. Super useful in a fight. Not so useful when you don't realize you've broken something until way later. You can just ignore pain? Jexis's voice had gone up an octave. During an emergency, yeah. It's not perfect, but it helps. Humans have survived some really gnarly injuries because of it. I was starting to understand why the database had flagged this species. Every single thing Mira described sounded like something out of a military bioweapon program, but she talked about it like it was totally normal. Look, Mira said, sensing our unease. I get that the database makes us sound scary, but humans are actually pretty friendly. We like making friends, we like learning new things, and we really, really like not getting into fights. Violence is kind of a last resort thing for most of us. Most of you? I echoed. Well, yeah. There's always a few weirdos, but that's true of any species, right? She had a point. Jexis was staring at Mira like she was trying to reconcile the database file with the cheerful little alien in front of her. So let me get this straight. You're from a nightmare planet. You can chase prey to death. You ignore pain, you get stronger when scared, and you're telling me you're friendly. Yep, pretty much sums it up. Mira shifted her bag to her other shoulder. So are we good? Can I get to my quarters? It's been a long trip, and I'm dying for some food. Dying for food, Jexis muttered. Even the way she talks is ominous. I made a command decision. Database warning or not. This human seemed genuinely harmless. Friendly, even. Maybe the threat assessment was based on potential rather than actual behavior. Lots of species had scary capabilities they never used in civilized space. All right, Mira Kowalski, I said, stamping her documents. Welcome to Station Epsilon 9. Your quarters are in Section C, Level 4. Try not to terrify anyone. I'll do my best, she chirped, taking her approved documents. Thanks, guys. See you around. And just like that, she bounced off down the corridor, her little bag swinging behind her, looking for all the galaxy like the least threatening thing ever to set foot on this station. Jexis watched her go. Voran, I'm calling it now. That database entry is complete nonsense. That human is about as dangerous as a bowl of nutrient paste. I wanted to agree. I really did. But something about the way Mira had described her species, the casual way she'd talked about ignoring pain and hunting prey to exhaustion, made me think twice. Let's just keep an eye on her, I said. For now. You're paranoid, Jexis said. I'm cautious. There's a difference. What neither of us knew, what we couldn't possibly have known in that moment, was that within 48 hours, that tiny human was going to prove every single word of that database entry correct. And we were going to wish we'd taken those warnings a lot more seriously. So here's the thing about working station security. Most days are boring. Really, really boring. You check manifests, you scan cargo, you break up the occasional argument between drunk traders, and you go home. That's the job. 99% tedium, 1% pure terror. Guess which percent I was about to experience? It had been 2 days since Mara Kowalski arrived on station Epsilon 9, and in that time, she'd been the model guest. Attended her cultural exchange meetings, visited the observation decks, tried about 15 different species cuisines in the food courts. Jexis had run into her at the market level, and reported that the human had been enthusiastically buying what she called souvenirs. Little trinkets and data chips about galactic history. See? Jexis had said smugly. Told you she was harmless. That database entry is definitely getting a correction filed. I'd nodded, agreed, and quietly kept an eye on the human's movements through the station's tracking system. Call it professional paranoia, but something about that hazard rating still bothered me. The Galactic Species Registry didn't just hand out level 9 classifications for fun. There had to be a reason. I was about to find out what that reason was. It started with an emergency alert at 0400 station time. My communicator screamed me awake with the kind of alarm that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. All security personnel, respond immediately to Docking Bay 7. Hostage situation in progress. Repeat, hostage situation in progress. I was out of bed and in my armor before my brain fully processed what I'd heard. Hostage situation? On Epsilon 9? We were a commerce station. Neutral territory. Nobody took hostages here. It was basically asking for every military force in 3 sectors to come down on you like the wrath of angry gods. By the time I reached Docking Bay 7, there were already 6 security officers forming a perimeter. Jexis was there too, looking grim. Talk to me, I said, checking my weapons charge. Pirates, she said flatly. Corvan Reavers, to be specific. 4 of them. They were posing as cargo haulers, got through our scans somehow, and now they've barricaded themselves in the bay with 23 hostages. Corvan Reavers. Oh, that was just perfect. The Corvans were bad news, 8 feet of muscle and rage with a cultural philosophy that basically boiled down to take what you want and kill anyone who complains. They were also notoriously unstable, prone to violence for the smallest reasons. Demands? I asked. Full fuel load, supplies and safe passage out of the sector. Oh, and they want all security forces to back off, or they start killing hostages. 1 every 10 minutes. I felt my blood chill. Have they hurt anyone yet? Not yet, but they're serious. Their leader is a psychopath named Crave. He's wanted in 6 systems for murder, piracy and torture. This is not a bluff situation, Vur. I looked at the sealed bay doors. Behind them 23 innocent beings were counting on us to get them out alive. Standard protocol said we negotiate, stall for time, and wait for specialized tactical units to arrive. Problem was, the nearest tactical unit was 4 hours away. We didn't have 4 hours. We had 10 minutes before the first execution. Options, I said to the assembled team. A Silthari officer named Vex spoke up. The bay has 3 access points, main doors, maintenance shaft, and emergency airlock, all sealed from inside. We'd have to cut through, which takes time and makes noise. They'd know we were coming. Can we override the locks remotely? Negative. They've jammed the control systems. Someone with serious tech skills set this up. This was bad, really bad. I was running through scenarios in my head, none of them good, when I heard a voice behind me. Excuse me? Sorry. Hi. I might be able to help. I turned around and there was Mira Kowalski, still in what looked like pajamas, holding a cup of something steaming. Miss Kowalski, I said as patiently as possible. This is a security situation. Civilians need to stay clear. Yeah, I know, but I was getting coffee and heard the alert. Hostage situation, right? Corvan Reavers? She took a sip of her drink, completely calm. How many hostiles? Jexis stared at her. With all due respect, tiny human, this is not the time for civilians to play hero. These are Corvan Reavers. They're massive, violent, and heavily armed. Mira nodded thoughtfully. Right, but here's the thing. I'm a certified emergency responder back on Earth, trained in hostage negotiation and crisis intervention. I've dealt with dangerous situations before. I wanted to laugh. This little creature, who barely came up to my chest, thought she could help with Corvan Reavers, but something in her eyes stopped me. They weren't scared. They weren't uncertain. They were focused, calculated. Miss Kowalski, I appreciate the offer, but these aren't human criminals. These are alien pirates who will kill you without hesitation. I understand that, she said calmly, but you're running out of time, and I'm guessing you don't have a lot of great options right now. So here's what I'm thinking. I go in unarmed as a negotiator. While I keep them talking, your team gets into position. Worst case, I buy you time. Best case, I get some hostages out. Absolutely not, I said immediately. I'm not sending a civilian into a death trap. Vorin, Mira said, and her voice had changed. Gone was the cheerful tourist. This was someone else entirely. Those people in there are going to die unless someone does something. You know it, I know it. And right now, I'm your best option because I'm small. I look harmless, and they won't see me as a threat. That gives me an advantage. Jexis clicked her mandibles nervously. She's got a point about looking harmless. But Vorin, if she gets hurt, that's on us. I looked at Mira, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw past the small frame and friendly smile. There was something in her expression, something hard and determined that reminded me of veteran soldiers I'd served with. You've done this before, I said. Haven't you? Back on Earth, yeah. Different circumstances, same principle. Keep the bad guys talking, give your team time to work. She set down her coffee cup. Look, I know what the database says about humans, and I know you probably think it's exaggerated, but trust me when I tell you that if things go bad in there, I can handle myself long enough for your team to breach. There was that phrase again, handle myself, said with the same casual confidence she used to describe everything else. I made a decision that I would either be commended for or fired over. Possibly both. All right, Miss Kowalski. You've got your chance. But you follow my instructions exactly. Understand? Perfectly, she said, and that cheerful smile came back. Let's go save some people. 10 minutes later, we had the plan set up. Mira would approach the main doors, request entry as a negotiator, and keep the Reavers occupied while my team quietly cut through the maintenance shaft. It was risky, insane even, but it was better than watching hostages die. Mira stood in front of the sealed doors, completely calm, while I activated the communication system. Corvan vessel, this is station security. We're sending in an unarmed negotiator to discuss terms. Do not fire. There was a long pause, then a rough, growling voice responded. Send them in, slowly. Any tricks and I start shooting hostages. The doors hissed open just enough for Mira to slip through. She gave us a little wave, then walked into the bay like she was heading to a business meeting. The doors sealed behind her. She's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, Vex muttered. Maybe both, I said, activating my earpiece to listen to the audio feed from Mira's hidden communicator. What I heard next would stick with me for the rest of my life. Hi there, Mira's voice, bright and friendly. I'm Mira. I'm here to help figure this situation out. Nobody needs to get hurt today. A deep, snarling laugh. Kralf, the leader. Look at this. They send us a tiny little thing. What are you supposed to be, a snack? I'm a human, Mira said simply. And I'm here to talk about how we can all walk away from this without anyone dying. That includes you guys. You think you can threaten us? Another voice, angrier. Not threatening anyone, just pointing out that killing hostages brings down a level of response you really don't want. But if we can work something out, maybe everyone goes home safe. Seems better, right? There was muttering in the background. I signaled to my team to start moving toward the maintenance shaft. We had to time this perfectly. Your station won't negotiate, Kralf said. They never do. Well, I'm negotiating right now, Mira pointed out. So that's not quite true. Why don't you tell me what you actually need? Maybe we can find a solution. We need a ship, fuel, and safe passage. Okay, those are reasonable requests. The problem is, you're asking for them while threatening innocent people. Makes it hard for anyone to trust you'll keep your word. How about this? You release half the hostages as a show of good faith, and I'll personally guarantee you get the supplies you need. I held my breath. This was the critical moment. Or the Kralth would take the deal, or he'd get angry and start shooting. You can guarantee nothing, little creature, Kralth growled. You're stalling, trying to give your security team time to move into position. My blood went cold. He knew. Well, yeah, Mira said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I mean, that's kind of negotiation 101. But here's the thing, Kralth. You're smart enough to know that killing hostages only speeds up your death. The second you hurt someone, every soldier in 3 sectors comes for you. But if you work with me, you might actually survive this. I think, Kralth said slowly, that I will make an example instead. Starting with you. The audio picked up movement, hostages screaming, heavy footsteps. Bad choice, Mira said, and her voice had gone flat, cold. Then everything went absolutely insane. The sounds that came through the audio feed were like nothing I'd ever heard. Kralth roaring in pain, something cracking, multiple somethings cracking, shouting in Corvan, panicked and confused. All units. Breach now. I screamed into my communicator. We cut through the maintenance shaft in record time, pouring into the docking bay with weapons ready, expecting a massacre. What we found instead was a scene I still can't quite believe. 3 of the Corvan Reavers were on the ground, unconscious or groaning. The 4th was backing away from Mira, who stood in the center of the bay, her travel clothes torn, a cut bleeding on her forehead, but very much alive and extremely angry. Kralth was on the ground at her feet, his arm bent at an angle that arms definitely should not bend. He was whimpering. Mira looked up at us, breathing hard. Hey guys, negotiations broke down, had to improvise. What in the 7 hells happened? Jexis breathed. He tried to grab me, Mira said, shaking out her hands. So I broke his arm. Then his friend tried to shoot me, so I disarmed him. Literally. Pretty sure his wrist is fractured. The other 2 came at me together, which was dumb because it limited their movement. One's got a concussion, the other's just sleeping. She'd taken down 4 Corvan Reavers. By herself. In less than 2 minutes. The hostages were huddled in the corner, staring at her with expressions of absolute shock. Miss Kowalski, I managed. How? She looked at me, and for the first time I saw what the database had been trying to tell us. There was something predatory in those forward-facing eyes, something ancient and dangerous. I told you, she said quietly. Humans are from a death world. We evolved to survive things that would kill most species. And when we're threatened, when innocent people are in danger, we stop being friendly. She walked over to Kralth, who tried to scramble away from her. She crouched down next to him, ignoring his size advantage. You made a mistake, she told him softly. You thought because I was small, I was weak. But humans don't survive by being the biggest or the strongest. We survive by being the most stubborn, the most adaptable, and the most absolutely unwilling to give up. Ever. You should have taken the deal. Then she stood up, walked past us, and headed toward the medical bay. I'm gonna need some bandages, she called back. And maybe a sandwich. Fighting makes me hungry. The bay was silent except for the groaning of injured pirates. Jexis looked at me, her 4 eyes wide. Foreign, I take back everything I said. That database entry wasn't exaggerated. If anything, it was understating things. I nodded slowly, watching Mira disappear down the corridor. Hazard level 9, I said. I understand now. Later, after we'd secured the pirates and debriefed the hostages, I found Mira in the medical bay getting her cut treated. She was back to her cheerful self, chatting with the medic about human wound healing rates. Miss Kowalski, I said, I owe you an apology, and probably a medal. She grinned. Just doing what needed doing. Besides, I told you, humans are pretty good at handling emergencies. That was more than handling an emergency. That was combat expertise. Well, yeah, I might have left out that I was military police for 6 years before becoming an emergency responder. She shrugged. Didn't want to scare anyone. Too late for that, I admitted. The whole station is going to hear about this. Great, she sighed. There goes my peaceful cultural exchange. Everyone's going to treat me like I'm some kind of monster now. Not a monster, I corrected. More like a reminder that the galaxy is bigger and stranger than we think, and that sometimes the most dangerous things come in the smallest packages. Mira laughed. That's actually a pretty good summary of humanity in general. We're small, we're squishy, and we look like we'd lose a fight with a light breeze, but we're also too stubborn to know when we're beaten, too creative to fight fair, and too protective of the people we care about to ever back down. She looked up at me with those bright green eyes. The thing is, Foreign, we don't want to be dangerous. We'd much rather be friendly, learn about other cultures, and build cool stuff together. But if you threaten innocent people in front of a human, well then you find out exactly why we're classified as a death world species. I thought about the database entry, about all those warnings and threat assessments. They suddenly made perfect sense. Your species is going to do very well in the galaxy, I said, and very badly, depending on who you meet. That's kind of our specialty, Mira agreed. Extreme outcomes, we're either your best friends or your worst nightmare. Not a lot of middle ground with humans. Over the next few weeks, word spread throughout the station about the tiny human who'd single-handedly taken down 4 Corvan Reavers. Mira became something of a celebrity, though she handled it with the same cheerful grace she handled everything else. She finished her cultural exchange program, made friends with dozens of species, and taught anyone who'd listen about Earth and human culture. But there was a new respect in how people treated her, an understanding that behind that friendly smile was something far more formidable. On the day she left, I walked her to the departure gate. Safe travels, Miss Kowalski. Try not to terrify anyone at your next stop. I'll do my best, she said with a grin. But you know how it is. Sometimes the galaxy needs a reminder that looks can be deceiving. Indeed, I agreed. One question, before you go. That database entry, the one that lists humans as hazard level 9. Is that accurate for all humans, or just the trained ones? Mira paused, thinking. That's a good question. I'd say most humans could probably handle themselves in a crisis. We're all built with the same basic survival package. But the really scary thing about my species, we protect each other. You hurt one human, you've got a problem. You hurt a human's family or friends. She shook her head. Then you've got millions of problems, all of them highly motivated and extremely creative. Noted, I said. I'll make sure that gets added to your species file. Appreciate it, she said. Oh, and Vorin, thanks for taking a chance on me. I know it was risky. You saved 23 lives, I told her. That's not risky. That's heroic. Just another day in the life of a death world species, she said with a wink. And then she was gone, boarding her transport with that same bouncy walk that now seemed a lot less harmless than it had 2 weeks ago. Jexis joined me at the viewport, watching the transport depart. So, what did we learn from this experience? That the database is always right, I said. And that humans are absolutely terrifying when properly motivated. Also that size means nothing, Jexis added. I've fought Grellock warriors that were less scary than that tiny human. You know what the really disturbing part is? I said. There are billions of them. Billions of creatures just like Mira, all with the same capabilities, all with the same protective instincts. If humanity ever decides to get serious about galactic affairs, the whole power structure is going to shift. Or, Jexis suggested, they'll just keep being friendly and helpful, and we'll all benefit from having them around. Let's hope so, I agreed. Because the alternative is something I really don't want to think about. I pulled up my datapad one last time looking at Mira's species file. That hazard level 9 rating stared back at me, and now I understood it completely. Humans weren't dangerous because they were aggressive or hostile. They were dangerous because they cared, because they protected, and because when pushed into a corner, they became something that made the galaxy's worst nightmares look tame by comparison. I added a note to the file, right at the bottom. Advisory to all security personnel. Humans are friendly, cooperative, and excellent allies. Treat them with respect, protect their interests, and never, under any circumstances, give them a reason to stop being friendly. Signed, Security Chief Vorin, Station Epsilon 9. Then I closed the file and went back to work, grateful that humanity had chosen the path of friendship instead of conquest. Because after meeting Mira Kowalski, I knew with absolute certainty which one they were better at. And it wasn't friendship.